Welcome into this week's Waiver Wire show. I appreciate everyone for hopping in. Going to have a great one lined up today. I have week 5, a lot of pickups, a lot of injuries we have to talk about, and then the subsequent replacement to dive into it. Obviously, you're noticing right now that we do not have Axton with us this week. We have a lovely bearded man in Dynasty Santa.
Yo,
Steve,
yo.
how's it going?
What's up, man? Good to be here. Happy to fill in here on the pivot. Yeah, just excited to talk about all these wonderful injuries that happened this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna start with defense. We're gonna dive through those defensive linemen, the linebackers, and defensive backs. Answer some questions. So again, if you have any, submit them down below. We'll try to get through them throughout the stream.
Nice.
Up on screen, whole thing, and then we'll go to offense. Same recipe right there. You guys know the drill if you've been here since day one. So let's, without further ado, let's get into those defensive linemen, Steve.
Mhm.
Not a ton of names I like, and that's why I'm
No.
kind of picking at and that's kind of be expected at this point of the year. I think we had the hot run already, but I think there's still some good defensive tackles that you can line up at defensive line, which isn't
Yeah.
always the case. So,
Right.
do you want to kick us off with one of the names?
Okay, so it looks like Grady Jarrett here is the top guy, right? He started off pretty nicely in week 1. He's only had one bad game. In week 2, it looks like he gave us a 0 burger. So, but you're gonna experience that with DTs, right? But I gotta agree, Jared. He's always been a consistent producer. He plays all the snaps for the most part, as much as a defensive tackle is going to play. So that's your upside with him. And he's getting to the quarterback this year, so he's a nice little option to pivot to for week headed into week 5 here.
Yeah. What more can you ask for, honestly, right?
Right.
Between snaps and sack upside. So I and great and also just overall great player. So it's always a decent thing to at
Mhm.
least bet on the talent. So yeah, let's I'll get into a second name here. And I really like this one. I like Kenny Clark this week
Mhm.
against the Giants. So
Yes.
the Giants this past week, they only allowed 1 sack, but prior to that, they allowed 13 in the 3 games prior.
Oh
Now,
boy.
Kenny Clark is a bit of a unicorn in the sense that, yes, he's a defensive tackle and he will maul the run game, but he will get to the quarterback. He is a really dang good pass rusher, and I think there's that opportunity. I think he's going to grab a sack in this one. And then besides that, we talked about what you just said about the volatility of defensive tackles.
Mhm.
Kenny Clark at least has some baseline. He has 4 tackles in all but 1 game. Again,
Yeah.
he's the Giants this coming week, so he's probably on your wire just because he's a defensive tackle, and I think you could play him. You could play him in just D line centric leagues.
And that whole line is hot right now, right? Between Gary, Reed had a nice game.
Yeah.
Clark had his typical game. So like it feels like he's kind of due as the next guy up to log a sack this weekend, just from the principles of randomness and hopefully spacing out that QB production. So it feels
Yeah.
like he's the next guy up to have a really nice game. Let's hope.
On defensive line, as much as any other position, there's so
Yeah.
much that goes into one guy being great and helping
Mhm.
everyone else. I mean, look at TJ Watt in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Alex Smith has had his splash games, but he is much better when TJ Watt's taking attention on the other side. Same goes
Mhm.
with Cam Hayward, same goes for the whole unit. So that's kind of what Green Bay's doing right now. They're feeding off of Rashawn Gary, and then Kenny Clark prospers.
Mhm.
Quay Walker will get his at sometimes. He's not on
Yeah.
the deep line, but there's Preston Smith has been having a pretty
Right.
good year as well. So
Yeah.
when one everyone eats type of thing.
Mhm.
So I think
Mhm.
Kenny Clark's going to have his. I think he's going to have a big plate this coming Sunday.
Do you want me to take the next guy here?
You're especially passionate about it.
Yeah, it looks like Sebastian Joseph Day. Um, the who are we looking at there? The Chargers?
That is the defensive tackle for the Chargers. Been quietly a
Right.
good player for him, and this year he's been pretty dang good as well. I'll pull up the numbers because I didn't quite have him on one.
Yeah, he's giving you a nice baseline tackle floor, I'm pretty sure, especially for a DT. So yeah, if you're playing in DT required or DT premium, he's certainly a nice guy. And if you're really hurting in just DL or DE, he could be a nice little fill in for this week for sure
Yeah,
against the Jets.
Yep, that's exactly it. He has 4 tackles or more in his last 3 weeks. He had
Hmm.
7 in week 3, and that was against.
Nice.
It's just he's been feeding off these good matchups of he went Jags, then Houston, 2 teams with the Jags have been quietly good against pass rusher. They haven't allowed a lot of sacks. They're
Yeah.
still a run-heavy team, and, Joseph Day kinda ate up that middle. Same thing went for Houston when they fed Dameon Pierce, who's not a good running back, but
Right.
and then they have Cleveland on tap. They have Cleveland coming up this week. They've allowed quite a lot of points to defensive tackle this year. It's a very run-heavy team, so that tackle baseline should definitely be there because some of those runs
Yeah.
will go for 60.
Right. Right.
For 3, and they'll be dragged down in assisted tackle by Joseph Day. So,
Right.
especially the assisted tackle bonuses, I think you get a lot of those this coming week. And because he's a defensive tackle, probably I don't think he has the highest ceiling this week. I don't know if
Hmm.
we're going to see that, but in terms of TFL potential and tackles, it's as good as you could ask for a good matchup this week.
Absolutely. And can we just talk philosophy here for a second? I see you have highlighted from last week, the big names like Dietrich Wise, Brandon Graham. And what did they give us this week? A big bunch of nothing for the most part, right? So just, chasing points, from the previous week, we're trying to teach you, especially if you're newer to IDP, to definitely don't do that, or at least dig into the stats further as far as snap counts, and snap share percentages, because the guys we're giving you here are guys that play. Some of these guys that are spiking are, they're
Rotation.
not exactly, they're getting lucky essentially on, a very small percentage of playing time. So we're trying to give you guys here that are giving you consistent playing time, and therefore, throughout the year have a higher chance of giving you, stats. Maybe not quite the ceiling of some of those guys, but certainly a much safer floor.
Yep. And honestly, you took the words right out of my mouth of something I'm supposed to do at the top of these, and I always forget for defensive line. But the first one last week,
That's okay.
we talked about Dietrich Wise as someone we weren't chasing, but someone we wanted to see if the
Sure.
snaps were because of how well he played. We mentioned Brandon Graham, who we didn't really like, didn't want to chase those points because of the rotational role.
Yeah.
I mentioned Chris Rumph as someone I just like as a deep stash.
Yeah.
He's not getting. I don't think he's going to get that edge rush. Kyle Van Noy, so a nice little surge in that.
Yeah, they're giving it to the veteran all the playing time.
I couldn't imagine that. And I mentioned Josh Sweat, who didn't have a great week. Again, the Jags have been good against allowing sacks. So
Yeah.
hoping he would break that streak. And
Yeah.
I think he's got better weeks ahead of him. I'm willing to forgive him and play him against Arizona this week.
Absolutely. I mean, Josh Sweat is of all those names you just mentioned. I mean, he's the clear guy that you want to own out of all of them. He's still getting the playing time. Is he going to have a sack every single week? No, but his path to sacks are a heck of a lot easier now with Derek Barnett out of the way for the year, and he's playing the most out of those end rotational guys. So definitely do not cut bait on Josh Sweat.
Yes, sir. I'll move on to linebackers. I'll bring up quick good evening from Marco. How you doing, Marco?
What's up?
Always good to see your name in these streams every week. I see your Logan Wilson question. We're going to get to that at the end of the defensive segment. Again, anybody that's watching, be sure drop any questions you might have in the chat. We will get to those at the end of offense or defense, whatever it relates to. So be sure to keep dropping those questions in. But linebackers, the meat of the position is feeling ridiculously bare.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So last week we talked about Jacob Phillips, which was a smash hit of somebody that was going to replace Anthony Walker. Came in 100% of snaps, out-snapped JOK.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, if he's somehow still out there, that's the priority ad. That's somebody that you should have. I hope you guys listened last week and grabbed him because he's going to have a very valuable role.
Yeah.
We talked about not chasing Darius Harris. Do you know how he did this week? I actually don't have that.
I'm pretty sure he was a gigantic letdown, if I recall. Let me take a peek here. I know let's see.
The type of thing I should have in hand, but 5 weeks in, and I'm still a little bit
I don't know that he recorded a meaningful statistic.
He did not.
I'm looking here. Yeah.
33% of snaps. And this is kind of what we talked about I want to look
at it.
Because it was such a weird thing that happened last week. I was
Mhm.
fully expecting Chanel to get that role, right?
Yeah,
And
me too.
he didn't. Now that it was weird to me, so I wanted to wait and see how it played out. And now this week, Chanel didn't get the role either. He only played 6% of snaps. It actually went down. So
Yeah.
if while I talk about our first linebacker name, do you mind? Can you look up who got those LB2 snaps in?
Yeah, it was basically no one. From what I'm reading here, excuse me. Of course, Nick Bolton played 100% of snaps, so that's great for his usage. They are classifying on the NFL site. They are classifying Carlos Dunlap as a linebacker, which is kind of weird. You're right. So he played. He got the next closest as with a linebacker designation at 44%. And then Darius Harris did get the next closest at 33, but he
Wow,
just
one
didn't give us
linebacker.
anything. It was only 21 snaps,
Interesting.
33%, and he just gave us a big zero burger.
I mean, I guess the way the Bucks played a lot of
Ye-
spread. They lined up a lot of guys out wide. I guess it makes sense to only line up one linebacker if you can afford it.
Yeah,
This is Steve
the
Spagnuolo
game script.
at his finest. But
Yeah, right.
yeah. So ultimately, last week we said don't chase Derrick Harris. Wait for it to play out, and that worked.
So you know what happened? With the game script and throwing everywhere, it was we saw Juan Thornhill get 100% of snaps. Justin Reed. So these are all defensive backs. Justin Reed get 91%, and the rookie Brian Cook actually got 73%. So it looks like their game plan, honestly, probably even from the get-go, was to go heavy defensive backs and only one linebacker for the most part. So that kind of was just matchup based and game script based, and that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's yeah. So Spags has honest. Honestly, that's the best way we can sum it up. Just very somewhat unpredictable outside of Nick Bolton. So, but
Yeah,
back to accountability, we mentioned Jayon Brown as somebody that we might be interested in if Denzel Perryman gets hurt, or if he
right.
didn't play. Denzel Perryman did play for half the game before he left with concussion, and then Jayon Brown went
That's
out
okay.
0 tackles on his 50% snap. So hopefully he didn't start him to begin with because Perryman was active, so that wouldn't have made sense. But he had a brutal game anyway. Just did not play well, whiffed a lot. Josie Jewel, we brought up after his monster game last week. Again, I'm not entirely sure how he did this week, but he's still someone.
I'm pretty sure he had another monster game, if I
Because the
recall.
usage that was definitely something we wanted to chase because the usage was there.
Yeah,
He's a fine player. He's a run stuffer more than anything, and he got 100%
yeah,
of snap last week, 14 combined tackles.
right.
Yeah, he's definitely someone that we were more excited to get than some of those other names outside of maybe Jacob Phillips, and both will be
Yeah,
great long probably.
yeah.
But on for this week, let's actually move on to this. We also touched on Zaire Franklin, which I'll touch on in a little bit. It's interesting there. Jalen Smith, Giants. God, we are already at that point.
Uh-huh.
He only played 50% of snaps in week 4, so it's not something that I'm. It's a scary thing to say pick him up and start him because
Right.
he's not going to put up 7 tackles on 50% snaps every single time. That's not something you can
Exactly.
expect. But they did just sign him, so it does make sense for him not to play 90+%.
Yeah.
And the Giants linebacking core is possibly the worst in football. You could correct me on that, Steve. It's
No,
really
I would
bad.
totally agree.
So with all that in mind, I don't mind seeing him because they clearly
Yeah.
want to use him. They lined him up a couple days after signing him. And it could be those filthy production points that might be interesting in looking at, especially if Julian Love's going to miss time. He has a concussion.
Right.
Less box snaps, maybe, but
Yeah.
none of us are excited for this, but this feels like maybe
Exactly.
an eat your greens type of pick.
Yeah, he's a guy that now going forward should be rostered, but you're not starting him unless you're desperate or running the injury and bye week issues. And you know what? If he has a blow up game on your bench, that you're just gonna kind of have to deal with that. But yeah, maybe throw 5% max fab on him and keep him stashed to see how things shake out. Tate Crowder had a really nice game somehow. So maybe they'll keep him in there, building off of that game. And Smith, like you said, continues to see closer to 50% of snaps. Obviously, we should see it increase. But yeah, he's just the ultimate, like, not exciting. He's steal your expression, he's a toast guy for me, right?
Yeah, I was thinking that now. That was a few weeks ago. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Now, Jelani Tavai, I hope I'm saying it right.
Yeah, you got it.
I feel scary getting any New England player because, especially at linebacker, because you know how Belichick is. We're talking about Spagnuolo pulling the rug under us. I mean, who knows? But you did see a jump in snap count week 4, all the way up to 75%. That's 55 snaps. That's a good roll. It's still not upper echelon, but it's a good roll. He racked up 8 tackles on that snap, and if you can get that every single week, he would be a plug and play for me. I need to see another week before I pick him up. If I have a space to stash him, I will. I'm not trying to pick him up and play, but I do want to chase that role. Where are you at with?
So I wrote about him on the IDP rundown because I noticed, his game. I put him in the other category. I said he sort of came out of nowhere with a productive tackling performance. I'm not buying it long term. He gave you nothing besides tackles, and I've heard rumblings that the Patriots are talking about signing Jamie Collins. So I think this was again another sort of game script dependent production. Like I say, it came out of nowhere. It still wasn't a ton of snaps, and it was a high tackling production. Our formula usually says to fade those types of performances. Similar to Jalen Smith, should he be rostered maybe after this? Sure, maybe if you've got the room. I'm not, especially in Dynasty, I'm not like cutting anyone that I like guys like that I've been stashing like Terrell Bernard or Brandon Smith in Carolina. Like I'm not cutting them for him because we know he's just not good. Also, Raekwon McMillan was playing decently, and I believe he missed this week due to injury. So this could have just literally been a 1 week short burst out of nowhere performance. I really think that is what it is. So if McMillan can come back healthy and or they sign Jamie Collins, we're going to see Tavai back to nothing. So I'm personally not, and I could be very much wrong. Not saying anyone's wrong, but I'm personally just not very excited about this. Just knowing the player and understanding the situation around him this week.
Yep.
He deserves to be mentioned and talked about for sure. Right. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I couldn't put it better than that. So I'll bring up one other name because I think we kind of talked about 2 names that were not really. This is the Randy Gregory situation. I want to take a quick second to talk about that. Obviously, Randy Gregory, not IDP gold by any means, but he's played well this year, and he's kind of getting a little bit more hot. He had a sack in each of his last 2 games before he got hurt this week. Is there anyone that you're interested in looking up to pick up? Because I think the replacement will probably be Darren Browning.
Yeah.
I'm not all that interested because I think snaps are very much a talent thing more than an opportunity thing. But are you chasing anyone just because we went through our defensive line spring, we're now in the linebacker segment? Obviously, we don't like linebackers that are just going after quarterbacks, really.
Right. Gregory kind of toes that line, right? He's an edge, so he could be considered for the defensive line conversation or the linebacker. My strategy is in seasonal, I'm pretty much ignoring this, and I'm ignoring this group because it's just so unpredictable. Yep. So I would be surprised if many people were rostering or especially starting Randy Gregory in seasonal leagues. So for seasonal, this is kind of irrelevant to me altogether. Now in Dynasty, that's where the more interesting conversation comes. You're stashing him on IR if you can, but he is up there in age. So, the time to trade him was after he had his first good week already. If I'm a Baron Browning owner, I'm looking to sell him, to be honest with you. If I could get like a third or maybe some player that, whether it be on offense or defense, that I'm interested in, like a Terrell Bernard or one of these linebacker stashes that might be relevant in a year or two, because I'm just not a big Browning believer. The other move I'm making is Nick Bonito, the rookie. I believe he was a second-round pick out of Oklahoma this year. I think, he unfortunately still didn't get hardly any snaps, despite Gregory going down. But hopefully, maybe we see going forward, he gets a little more playing time. And I think he's a better player than Browning. So if he can show that and convert some of his pressures on the field to sacks, maybe he'll take over the full playing time. So that's kind of the sneaky guy that I'm looking at, especially in dynasty leagues. And I'm moving Browning if I'm a Browning owner, and I'm not looking to acquire him for any sort of expensive price tag.
Yeah, I completely agree with all that. I'll throw out a couple of names that should be rostered, but just in case they aren't, these are names that we would want you to have. Alex Anzalone, I believe we brought him in one. Yes, no, he's not good. We know he's not. We know he's not.
It's so frustrating.
100% snap guy for I think 4 weeks running now for a team that can't get off the field on defense and will have a lot of defensive opportunity. So he's widely available in some of these leagues just because he's a name nobody's excited about. But if you look at those stats, he is a producer.
Right.
We talked about Malcolm Rodriguez a couple weeks ago in the same sense of we hope he takes out Anzalone's job, but for now it's a little bit behind. David Long and Casey he's probably rostered in your league, but very high usage role with Zach Cunningham also. Drew Tranquil is the last name I'll throw out as a potentially boring but useful name because he is a high snap guy. I mentioned him on the newsletter when they played on Thursday night last week of a guy that we definitely want to be watching for. We mentioned him on the show.
Totally.
Fine player. He's wearing the green dot now as well. I'm not sure if you saw that. So that also
nice.
Doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt. That stay on the field for that extra 10% snaps.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I think I might have missed that.
But yeah, we'll move on to defensive back now.
Well, do you want to quickly touch on the two wily veterans that one made his return and one could be making his return between Big Joe Shover and Big Blake Martinez real quick? And because people are going to see these names and want to pick them up because of their name value. What are you doing with either?
Okay. So Blake Martinez. I'll start with Mr. Washed Martinez. Not good for Divine Diablo. I won't lie.
I know.
He's been great for fantasy. He's been a pretty big liability in pass coverage. From everything I've read, he's not doing the job well there. He's getting those tackles, so we didn't really care.
Right.
I do think Martinez is going to eat into that role. But in the meantime, Denzel Perriman's hasn't been on the field, really. He's going to probably miss another week with a concussion, especially after all the attention Tua's received. And putting that with the light back on concussion. So Perriman will probably miss a week. And this is just as much an indictment on Jayon Brown being terrible.
Right.
The Raiders just need that reinforcement. So I do think Martinez is going to play a role. I don't think we're going to see 100% snap share that we saw in the Giants. I was saying that when he first got cut that I was fine cutting Martinez because wherever he's going, he's not guaranteed to get that same role. But he is doing in the same system with Patrick Graham. It's very much a this or that type of thing of which you want because the familiarity is somewhat there.
Right.
But he's also coming in mid-season. I'm expecting 70 to 80% with snap share. So I'm somewhat interested, but I'm not.
That's probably aggressive, honestly.
Definitely aggressive.
That would be his ceiling, and it feels like he's a quick stopgap guy, right? Like if Perriman comes back healthy, he's back to the bench or cut or back to the practice squad. So my message would be just don't go crazy for the name. If you could get him for a $1 or $0, sure, but I wouldn't be spending anything more than that. I think it'll be a 1 week rental unless you're desperate and need, you're probably not starting him anyway. So yeah, $1 or $0 and just watch because he's probably going to get recut or demoted to the practice squad as soon as Perriman is potentially healthy again. So yeah.
I'll adjust the 70 to 80% and say that was maybe for this 1 week.
Yeah, right. For one, yeah.
It's just difficult because this linebacker group, as any midseason signing, is just so bad that I wouldn't be totally surprised if he stuck around just because he does have familiarity with the system.
And we're predicting based on what we would do. These coaches, they'd love to seem to play bad players, so who knows?
They don't.
If we were in charge, right, we would probably not be playing him all that much.
And the other name you mentioned, Joe Scobert.
Big Joe.
I don't care. He got elevated. For everyone who knows where he is now, it's a true Find Your Joe app, like Santa tracker when you have Scobert tracker.
Yeah.
He's now with the Titans. He was on the practice squad. He got elevated again, like we mentioned before. And after this Zach Cunningham injury, and no one else is outside of David Long. Nobody else is really capable of playing linebacker. So the opportunity should be there. He's just such a bad player, Steve, that I really don't think he can stick around.
Right.
I don't long for the roster.
36% of snaps, so it was a high tackle rate percentage performance. I probably honestly want him more than Blake Martinez, but again, I'm not spending more than maybe $1 to $2. We'll give him a $1 bump over. Don't invest anything significant in these guys. If we're wrong about this and they go on a tear, I'm okay with missing on that. But again, these are big names who couldn't sign anywhere prior to teams, absolutely losing all of their depth at the position. So we shouldn't go crazy on them. That's all I really wanted to touch base on, is because people are going to see the names and want to grab them and maybe start them. Definitely don't start them. Maybe roster them for $1 or $2 in fab.
Yep. I think that's as much as we ever want to talk about the Dusty Vets. Let's move on to defensive backs. Rodney McLeod, we brought up the past week as someone who's got that box roll. Nick Cross is now firmly out of the picture, buried in coffin in the ocean. Just 0% this week, truly non-existent, and I don't know who he pissed off to do that, but it is what it is. That was definitely a miss by me in week 1, but you adjust, and hopefully you guys were able to get him McLeod this past week. So. Mike Hilton was one of our streamers. He only racked up 5 tackles, so somewhat underwhelming against the Dolphins, but
it's not bad. But it's no big plays.
Okay. It's not what I was hoping for. I hope you maybe grab a stack from that edge. Honestly, just really good blitzer. Call my Steelers sympathies. And who else we had? We had Travarius Ward, who I believe had a decent week as well, right? And Juju Hughes, who we brought up. I brought this up on the show. That I was not buying Juju Hughes because I was curious if Kirby Joseph would get that role. And the first name on this list is Kirby Joseph, who logged 100% of snaps. Well, welcome to the league, rookie. Your defense was terrible this week, but you were on the field. And honestly, I'm interested in kind of both of these Lions guys. And that's Deshawn Elliott, who's their other safety. He's third on the team on tackles. He had 11 this past week, which is a very nice floor to have. And with the snap share. And I want Kirby Joseph. I think when you see a rookie get this type of role immediately, and no hesitation, 100% role, he never pulled it in that game. I want to chase that because maybe this is am I falling for Nick?
No, I totally agree. I like Joseph in the draft process. I was taking him with my last round picks in rookie drafts everywhere. I wish he would have gotten a chance sooner, but I love that kid. So yeah, I totally agree.
Awesome. It's cool to be on the same page. Yeah. And the one other name I'll bring up just because defensive back, Dane Belton, filled in for Julian Love when he missed this past week. The Giants immediately worked out Landon Collins. Who wanted to work out went well, but no signing is expected if you've been tracking the Landon Collins not fiasco, but whatever. Dane Belton should be the fill-in for Julian Love if he misses this week, which again, like I mentioned, with all the awareness on concussions, as it should be, I expect people with concussions to miss a game. He racked up 4 tackles on that kind of like half game role. I don't know if he's going to step in and do everything for them, but I think you can get by with 1 week if you are truly deep diving for your waiver on defensive backs, which you might not be, but I think he's a good 4 to 6 tackle range with like a ceiling of 8, which you could do worse in there for a week.
Yeah, and I believe he's been getting in games even prior to this. So yeah, I definitely think he's a nice guy to throw. For those safeties, I'd probably want them in order of um, Kirby, Belton, Elliott, maybe, but they're all really close, honestly.
Yeah, I think I might take Elliott over Kirby just because Elliott's
He
had the
got the
role.
production.
Like he's been doing it all year, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't, as much as I believe Kirby Joseph holds this role, I wouldn't be totally shocked if we saw Juju Hughes rotate in next week because
Yeah,
it,
that's true.
for real life purposes,
Right.
they
Kirby's probably a better football
were
player.
embarrassed. They were embarrassed on they're
Yeah.
allowing they have the most points in football, but they have one win.
Yeah.
Testament to defense. So
Ugh,
it
brutal.
it I wouldn't be surprised if there was any shakeup, but they don't want to take Anzalone off the field, so I'm not going to do that. We're going to have to wait and see. So those are our defensive pickups. Of course, we have defensive questions. Marco asks, "Is Logan Wilson still worth holding on to?" Bengals linebacker coming off that injury hasn't exactly gone off to the start of the year that we hoped.
I'll give you my blurb from the IDP rundown. I say, yeah, he continues to disappoint with the slow start, but he has played every single defensive snap so far. We just aren't getting the turnovers that we were kind of spoiled with last year. I said, hold tight, he's coming. So I'm going to stand by that. I think it's coming. Again, he's still getting tackles. He's just not, giving us those big plays. So I think we know those are not sticky. But I think he's worth holding on to in your bench. Maybe keep him benched until he shows a decent performance. But which I know you're going to miss out on it on your bench, which stinks. So, but I think he should still be rostered. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think you can be dropping unless you're in a really shallow league a guy who's logged 100% snaps every single week. And I think it's reasonable to expect him to start off a little bit slower coming off the injury. And he did heat up this week a little bit. He got his first TFL of the season. He had an interception the week prior. He's had 7 tackles in each of the last 2 weeks. So it's trending up. I'm not going to panic with him yet either. I agree to give him some time. Let's bring up. Do we have any other defensive questions? Let me check my DMs. I might have received one. Okay. I think that might be it for defensive questions this week. I will bring up now, Steve. I don't know if you were tracking our Yahoo League last night, but I made quite a comeback over you, and on the back of Mr. Nick Bosa.
I'm in what's my team in that one?
Your team is the one that, let's take a look. We'll go over this quick because I want to get to offense. And of course, if you have any questions in this chat, be sure to submit them. Even if it's defense, we'll try to circle around offense as well, of course.
Oh, are you the Graham Crackers?
I am the Graham Crackers. I have changed my team name 3 times because it began with a Chase Young related thing. I had to release him. It began with a Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa thing. And Joey Bosa is obviously not there. And now I'm resorting to naming my team after my kicker.
I did see that we ended up pretty close there. I
was down to like 40 until Nick Bosa and Bobby Wagner stepped up in there. But
nice shot.
I'm now 500 in that league. It's not exactly showboating, but
there you go.
All right, let's move on to the offensive side of the ball. Actually, last question on defensive back. I should have touched on before. Jack Jones had a very nice week, and these Patriots defensive backs have been rotating so much of this. It's Miles Bryan, Jonathan Jones, Jack Jones. I tried. Jalen Mills missed. Jalen Mills is dealing with an injury for himself. So, any interest in chasing that down? He obviously had a pick 6 that really heavily boosted that performance. But
that's the problem: is the rotations, and it's like a new guy every single week. I think he should be on people's radars. If he skirts under the radar a little bit and you can get him for $1 or $0, I certainly think he'd be great to have on your roster. I said don't spend the farm to acquire him, but he definitely should be on your radar in cornerback required or premium league. So maybe I'm hoping he earned more playing time with that performance last week. So that's what you're hoping for, but you want to see it consistently. And obviously, he's not going to return a touchdown every single week, but he's giving me Trayvon Diggs vibes, where he could be that big play guy for the Patriots going forward. But it's going to be very volatile until no, I'm not saying he's going to get a pick every week like Diggs basically did last year, but he's got that potential. I think if he can earn the playing time.
Yeah, he's a big reason why they were in a game that they had no right to be in. So in my eyes, that would get him more snaps.
You would think.
Yeah, Bill Belichick. Yeah, well, of all people, like throw a wrench in it. So let's move on to the offense. We'll touch on the offensive side of the ball now with the quarterbacks. Last week, bit of miss between Trevor Lawrence and Jacoby Brissett, failing against the Atlanta defense because, of course, why not? Of course, there. And Trevor Lawrence didn't exactly get his day done with the Philadelphia defense. I was hoping for a better day. Zay Jones being a scratch, or really scratch and injured, late inactive.
Surprise inactive,
surprise inactive was a noticeable blow to that offense. Somebody we brought up as a pickup last week. And we're going to talk about again this week. But quarterback, Kenny Pickett. I'll bring it up. I'm not chasing it. This is. I didn't put this name on the show, Doc. Believe it or not, Steve. This is something that Axon put on, who obviously couldn't make it here today, but he brought it up.
Sure.
I'm not a Pickett guy. You know this. You remember this.
Yeah.
Listen, he got 2 rushing touchdowns. That's not going to happen again. If anything, it's a sign of positive regression for Najee Harris. But he played well. Those 3 interceptions, as much as I hate to say it, because I'm rooting for him for the record. I just don't like giving.
Obviously,
those 3 interceptions were not on it. Chase Claypool has
no. At least 2.
Chase Claypool has no idea how to use his frame. He should have thrown that higher to fire him with, but it clanged off the hands. And the last one was a Hail Mary that.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'll give him 2 at least were his fault.
He played reasonably well this week, and Steelers they got a huge bolt with him in. They moved the ball downfield. They were efficient on 3rd downs, which is something we couldn't have said all year. I'm not chasing it because they have the Bills on tap. And the Bills know how to make pressure, and the Steelers still allow pressure, and I don't want a rookie quarterback that's going to throw pressure or face pressure. So I'm not going to chase it. I'm not going to chase the 2 rushing touchdowns. But it's at the very least a good sign for, I think, the entire offense. So I guess that's the sense we want to bring up of with the exception of Chase Claypool, who I am firmly done with.
Same.
Saw a huge target share. Deontay Johnson is still going to get his. He only saw 15%, but that's still double what Claypool saw. So I think Freiermuth, Deontay Johnson, and Freiermuth and Deontay Johnson you can play this week with some confidence.
Yeah.
George Pickens is starting to maybe peak himself on the flex wire because I don't know if Claypool is going to hold on to his role for much longer.
Yeah, hopefully not. You're not chasing to throw him into your starting lineup, but I'll chase it to throw him on my bench as a backup if I feel like carrying 2 quarterbacks for sure. It seems like they were, like Tomlin said, the spark is a true, real thing. It seemed like it happened. It seemed like he was taking many more shots down the field than Mitch was. I don't know if the play calling somehow magically changed with the quarterback change, but if it did, hopefully they're going to continue on that path of taking more shots down the field. And for me, I'm dying for the Pickens outbreak because I've got him everywhere. So I may have to come around on Pickett as far as at least for the rest of this year. I feel like he could be a nice little sleeper there for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I firmly believe that Matt Canada's offense was always made for Kenny Pickett, and he never even tried to adjust for Mitch. And it's like that. But my non-interest does not extend to Superflex. Like Superflex, he is probably my 101 pickup of this week if he's on the wire and wasn't dispatched. Because he's a starting quarterback for the rest of the way that will move. Kenny Pickett will run the ball a little bit, and it has a really good core of receivers. Like, this is a good group. The offensive line has played fairly well this year as well, with the exception of Dan Moore at left tackle. But that we'll move on to someone I think you can actually start this week, and you're going to have to hold your stomach for this one. Carson Wentz, who the wheels have completely come off, but I'm willing to patch him back up with some scotch tape and put him down the train one more time. Faces the Titans, who allow 278 passing yards a game, which is bottom five in the league, and they've also allowed the most passing touchdowns.
All right.
So, in theory, while he doesn't have Jahan Dotson, he still has Terry McLaurin, he still has Curtis Samuel, he still has Logan Thomas, he still has J.D. McKissick. This is a good group of weapons that he has in a very plus matchup that I don't think Washington is as you're laughing at this the entire time, but I don't think Washington's offense is as bad as it's been for the last couple of weeks. I think we see more of week one than what we saw this past week.
My feedback is that all of this makes too much sense. So we know what's going to happen is that he's going to be Carson. What we saw in week one was not typical Carson, I don't think. So it's so tough. Of course, I've got him in a handful, and you know how many leagues I got screwed in by pivoting off of Jared Goff because I'm like, well, he's got no weapons this week. Yep. And I went to Wentz, I pivoted to Mariota, who just both had dud games. I think I left Goff in, I didn't totally go away from him. Wanted to hedge a little bit. And of course, all these guys still lost. But so this just feels like, I don't know. I don't think he's going to give you the, single digit game. I also don't think he's going to give you week one, 30, 40 point performance. I think it's going to land somewhere in the high teens or 20 point range, and he'll be fine. So with that being said, that's a perfectly good streamer and addition this week. So I guess I ultimately agree with you. It's Carson. He's so hard to trust.
I'll give you a little bit more of a bland name because we talked about it as someone we recommended last week. I'm ready to be heard, I guess, again by Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
Because I match it with the Chargers. The Chargers are still reeling. They're not going to have an answer without Bosa. They're not going to find a solution on the roster anywhere right now. Calvin Noy cannot replace Joey Bosa. So I don't mind them this week. The Chargers have have given a surprising amount of fantasy points to the fantasy quarterback position this year. Mm-hmm. And Brissett's played well. He wasn't even bad in this past game. He's just meh. So I think if you need a safe QB to a top 15 type of play, I think Brissett will find himself in the top 15. This is a name that is almost definitely out there in some QB leagues that if you need it, I think Brissett you can play.
Yeah. I like it with the call out of no Bosa, and that defense is still, it's typical Chargers, right? They've got a ton of individually great names, but as a unit, they just don't seem to play all that well together. So, I actually would prefer probably Brissett over Wentz as a single week starter going into this week.
It's very much an upside versus floor type of thing. I think if you want floor, if you're favored in your matchup, you might prefer Brissett. If you need that upside, I'd probably chase Wentz. So
exactly.
We'll run over to running backs now, which this sucks. This sucks so much, Steve. I was so upsetting. Obviously, Javonte Williams highlighted this week with a torn ACL. It wasn't just a torn ACL; it was a torn LCL. It was not quite J.K. Dobbins bad, but it's pretty dang bad. I saw a stat that I apologize, can't remember where it's from, but that 54 percent of players will return to play after that injury. 33% return to their pre-value form.
Wow.
So, listen, I don't mind buying him and then maybe reselling him on the offseason hype of when he's coming back, but this is the long and short of it, especially for a redraft. Javonte Williams will be missing this year. Mm-hmm. And the fill-ins right now are a cluster of things that I can't say on the stream. Mike Boone, Melvin Gordon, and they signed Latavius Murray off the Saints practice squad immediately after his London debut. So, what are you doing with this? Because I think there's value here. And
I thought that was interesting. The Murray sign really gunks this whole thing up. I don't like it. I was bitching about him during our start sit because he was vulturing touchdowns. So I could see that happening all over again. It sounds like Boone is going to be the fab, um, cracker this week. He's going to drain everyone's budgets. So, and I think Murray might be the better pick somehow. I don't know. We're going to have to see, how it shakes out. Normally, I would be much more confident jumping on one guy, but the fact that Gordon's still there, somewhat healthy, but he's fumbling. Is he actually going to be in the doghouse? Boone played, but now they bring in Murray. We saw him take away snaps from Mark Ingram last week. So this is exhausting to even think about. It's going to be a gigantic headache. Nobody's going to be the right answer, and whoever you grab is probably going to be the other guy.
I'll tell you this: I was all preparing aggressive Boone before Latavius Murray signed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to remember that this Broncos offense isn't what we want it to be. It's not 30 a week, and maybe we're chasing it a little bit more because we want those red zone snaps, but they're not moving the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Broncos really not checking it down all that much either.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have to pick one, because Melvin Gordon's probably rostered, I don't think Melvin holds on to this job. He has not played well this year. He has not looked good either. He hasn't played well in the red zone. It's just I think Latavius Murray signing is an indictment of him. And Mike Boone outsnapped him this past week because Melvin Gordon found himself in that doghouse.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're on a short week. That doesn't really matter for running backs.
Right.
And Melvin Gordon is also dealing with his own small little neck injury. It's a limited designation, and they didn't practice it, so add some more murkiness to it. I have to pick one. I'm signing all. If I want one, I want to take a lottery pick on this backfield, and between Mike Boone, who I actually have always kind of liked since Minnesota, I think I'm going to take Latavius Murray. I think they saw something that they wanted, and they signed him immediately. Like, you don't do signings that quickly on a day. It was day of, or not day of, it was day after. So I think Latavius Murray is going to get more the work in time on this team. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think the floor is going to be non-existent because he's not going to catch passes.
Right.
But
touchdowns.
He could fall in. He can fall in. He can take 11 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. And then for the year, and as the year goes on, that's going to be a valuable role. So if I have to pick one, I'd go Latavius Murray. I'd try like hell to sell Melvin can.
Yeah.
Or maybe wait for 1 week, short week, play it out. Maybe if I want to risk it, but he's on the short list to sell.
I'm leaning right there with you, and it feels like Murray's going to be the cheaper of the two, so that might work out.
Yeah. No, it probably will be.
It's disgusting. It's a disgusting situation.
We'll move on to something more or less disgusting. I appreciate the questions coming in from Marco as well as Poppage. We're going to get to those at the end of the offensive segment. If you guys have any questions, keep on throwing them in the chat. We'll be sure to bring them up. But running back, besides the disgusting part there, we'll go a little bit more disgusting. Patterson is dealing with his own knee injury. He's now on the IR. And now we're talking about the backup. I am a huge Tyler Algier fan. I will say this. I've always been a Tyler Algier fan. If anybody watched my show from College Combine, I had him probably too high in my rankings. He was a beast at BC. And he played well this past week. You know, he took 10 for 84. He had a one mixed in there, and he looked good. They also gave Caleb Huntley, who my friends kept calling the fullback, understandably, because he's a freaking huge guy, 10 carries for 52 goal line carries. So the long short of it is Damian Williams is hurt. Damian Williams is hurt. Cordell Patterson's hurt. You have Tyler Algier, and you have an Avery Williamson, a little defensive back, running back, who's playing special teams. And then you have Huntley. The opportunity's there for a bad team. Are you interested at all in Algier or
Algier for sure? I'm hoping they see, that he's the most talented back left on the roster here. I'm here. I think Damian Williams might be coming back.
He is I haven't seen any updates. I'll look it up while you keep going.
Yeah. That's just what I'm hearing. I still want Algier. I think out of all of these, I think he's like I said, I think he's the best talented back left. So I'm spending, probably 10% of my leftover fat minimum. He probably is going to go for much more than that, but that's kind of where I'm starting at, depending how desperate you are and a need for running back. I don't really want much to do with Huntley. Yeah, he's going to be touchdown or bust. The only reason he even had the amount of carries and yards he did was because they went on that running spurt. I think it was like 14 straight runs or something like that. I don't think that's going to continue. So, especially with the loss of Patterson, he gave them some, dynamic ability with play calling and whatnot. Algier can catch passes though too. I mean, he possesses that skill set, so that's why I think he's the best one. But we could see if Damian Williams comes back, we could unfortunately see a similar to Denver situation where it's just going to be all over the place, and he could end up being the guy as well. So, but I want personally Algier.
I have not really found any updates on Damian Williams' condition. Obviously, once we hit week 4, you are eligible to return. So
that's exactly what you said.
Yeah, and then start that 3-week window.
Yeah.
So I'm not expecting him back this week, and if I have to play one, I'm picking up Algier. But I think this is a bad offense, and unless I can count on Algier catching dump downs, which he definitely can. He has that skill set. We've seen Mariota kind of dump it down, but the Falcons' offense is just not what I'm chasing. So I'll ask the question to sum it up, because I think you put it as well as I could. I am an Algier stan. Who would you rather pick up, Tyler Algier or Latavius Murray?
Oh, God.
So it's a question
so gross.
It is gross, but we're in week 5. It's only going to get more gross.
Give me Algier. I'm a sucker for that's my dynasty brain. Give me the young guys. I can't stand these plotting bets.
And it's blasphemy to say this because anybody who knows me knows how much I love him. I would probably take Latavius Murray.
I get it.
Because I'm chasing the better offense. I think both are murky, both are cool, but I'm going to chase the better offense.
I get it.
But either way, definitely someone I'm still throwing. I'm still going to throw 5 to 6% probably on both type of thing.
Yeah.
Because I do want the risk reward. Now we're talking about risk reward. Rashonda White. Did you have a final point on that?
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say Algier will probably end up costing more just because he is the rookie and people get enamored with rookies. That's all.
Yeah, and this isn't
a good segue.
Yeah, I have no interest in Caleb Huntley for the record.
Same.
So yes, good segue indeed to another rookie, Rashonda White, who I really liked in the process. I had him ahead of my guy Tyler Algier. Now, not getting it on the ground. We'll full well admit that. And only got 3 carries, only took for 6 yards, and he got a touchdown in there. But I'll try to pull up his stats because he's still so young. I pulled up his college stats. He got it done there. And that's what Rashonda White does so well, and he did so well in the draft process that he's such a good receiver. He's a much better receiver than Leonard Fournette could ever dream of being. And he showed it especially. He took 5 catches on all 5 of his targets for 50 yards, and he didn't. I don't think he didn't get in the end zone there. He got on the ground, but
just one.
That's the role we were hoping. If you were drafting him and stashing him, you were hoping he would get that third down, dump down role, see what he can do with it.
Yeah,
he did really well, man. Now this is the first week that we've seen Rashonda White actually eat into snaps. He hasn't gone above 27% prior, and that was in week 1. He's now at 38%. Do you expect that to keep growing? Because if it does, then we have to chase it. He might be the pickup of the week. He might be stashed, but there's a lot of leagues where people just cut bait.
Yeah, this one I'm going back to being a negative Nancy. I feel like this was game script dependent. And this is the frustrating part about fantasy, right? Like he wasn't even getting on the field essentially, and he certainly wasn't getting ball touch opportunities when he was. So I'm gonna take the larger sample size and say that no, I would let other people spend their money on him this week. Now watch that Leonard Fournette will get injured and he'll be an amazing pickup. But if Leonard Fournette's not injured, I just think this was game script. They were going, pass. Like Fournette needed a break. and they threw him a bone, letting him get into the end zone. So I'm not buying it yet. And trust me, I love White too. Again, the rookie, shiny new thing. I get it, but I'm especially in redraft. I'm not buying into this, unfortunately.
Yep. I want to stash him. I really do want him on the back of my bench. Like you said as well, Fournette could get hurt. He couldn't miss him. Rashonda White is a plug-and-play great player because but I do agree that it was very much game script. I mean, we had 6 carries between Fournette and Rashonda White. Like, that's not going to happen every week. Fournette himself caught 7 balls. So I want the stash because this could be – I think it could be a future thing with Brady. I think Brady could be targeting the RB more than he ever targeted in his career, and he always targets at a high level because maybe that's just where he is at this point in his age, and maybe that's what happens with this offensive line being probably the worst that he's played with since like 2018 New England or 2019 New England, or I guess 2018. But so I think it's someone that I want on my roster. I am looking to get him, but I'm not trying to play him the immediate week. I'm going to play that one out.
If you're carrying 2 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks, I'm definitely grabbing him to replace one of them. But other than that, it's tough. It's all about your roster construction and how much fab you have left and they're willing to spend.
Let's do some quick hitters with these other 2 names. Deion Jackson or Philip Lindsay if Jonathan Taylor is out. I'm not chasing either on waivers, but are you interested in playing either if Jonathan Taylor misses on Thursday night against oh my goodness, remind me. I'm working on against
hang on.
Goodness.
The Broncos.
The Broncos. Any non-Miami back if Jonathan Taylor misses?
Yeah. No, am I interested in thrusting them in the starting lineup? No, not interested in that. Again, I'm kind of going to want to see how things shake out. It's probably going to be a short-term injury, so you're likely wasting that. And are they going to even do anything? Who knows?
And quick yes or no immediately. Are you playing Jonathan Taylor?
No.
Wow. Okay. Wow. I wasn't expecting that. I support it. I don't like an ankle injury on a short week, and it's the type of thing I'm willing to be wrong on because it's also not a good matchup. And he's not going to get the passing work really. So it feels crazy to say, but yeah, I think that's actually the right call. And last name as well, Brian Robinson has been activated. He's stashed in a lot of leagues because of the hype he got in the preseason. But if he's not in yours, if he didn't have an IR spot, he's somebody to definitely take a note of and scoop, see the role he gets when he gets back on the field. Give him a couple weeks though. But let's move on to wide receiver. Last week brought up Romeo. Oh my goodness, Dubes, right?
Dobbs. Technically.
It's becoming a new tradition that I get every week. But Romeo Dobbs, who got himself a touchdown with that nice back shoulder, he's gonna get that role. He has that role. He's gonna be a good player this year. Plays the Giants this week, which is not a great matchup, but a good enough one that I'm willing to play him based on targets. Matt Collins, we talked about as a stash because we want to see how that workload paid out. He didn't really do all that much this week. And Zay Jones, who got hurt and was a surprise inactive, we never really got to see him continue his ascent. So with that in mind, I'll toss out Jamal Agnew if Zay Jones is. I'm not going to waste much time on this because I think Zay Jones will be back this week.
Yeah.
But if he's not, I think Agnew is a nice sneaky DFS play. Like I don't have the trust to play him in my lineups, but
seasonal's tough to fit him in. But
he's been a good player for the Jaguars, and he's great with the ball in his hands. So I think he's a nice sneaky DFS play if Zay Jones misses. But again, I think Zay Jones is going to play. Are there any names that you are actually chasing a wide receiver this week? Because I thought it was a pretty bare one.
Yeah, none of these guys really are super exciting to me. If Dobbs is somehow still available there, but I'm just never on the Mac Hollins trade. I see Isaiah McKenzie. Most of the people we're talking to, he's going to be rostered. But
I put him down because he's still not rostered on 50% Yahoo leagues. Yeah. So take a look. Jameson Crowder is also dealing with a broken foot as well. If you need that incentive, but McKenzie's been what we want Gabe Davis to be.
Mm-hmm. So how bad was the Amon-Ra injury? Is he expected to miss more than just the 1 week? Do you
I
know?
I don't know. It was an ankle injury that he was really playing through.
Yeah,
This past hoping that he's going back this week, but I don't think we're gonna know until we get practice reports in.
because Josh Reynolds, maybe if Amon Ra is out another week, but yeah, he's not. And then I see Nico Collins on the list. I mean, God, why he's super disappointing this year. No, I have no interest until he actually does something.
Yeah, honestly, I think that almost sums up wide receiver in a way.
Yeah, wide receiver's pretty bad in the coverage right now.
Listen, for the zero RB truthers out there, this is why.
Yeah.
Why it's not as easy to find as you might think. And you know what? I'll throw it out there. Devontae Parker against the Lions.
Oh,
You know,
he's probably the most attractive of the names we've talked about.
He might get a touchdown because Detroit is allowing a lot of points, and Mac Jones could be back next week, type of thing. We'll see. So yeah, that's about wide receivers, and I won't waste too much time with names that we don't want to truly recommend. Again, keep sending those questions in because we're gonna get to it right after tight ends. Right now, we're gonna go to tight ends, and we're gonna get to offensive questions. We have a lot to go through. Appreciate everyone for sending them in. So if you keep on shooting those out there, we're gonna keep on getting to them. So obviously we're running a little bit longer than we wrap up now, but that's even more fun.
That always happens with me. Sorry.
No, we always do this. This was originally planned as a 30-minute show. It very quickly became we're gonna wrap it as an hour, and we hit that the last couple of weeks. I was gonna go a little bit longer here. But tight end. Last week we talked about Tyler Conklin as a maybe pickup. Pretty mad. We kind of want to see how it worked out with a new quarterback with Zach Wilson coming in. Played all right.
Yeah, I was actually much more worried about him. And it was slow through the first like 2/3 of the game, I feel like, but he got a lot of the comeback targets. So I was very pleased to see where he ended up. I was way more worried about him. So very happy.
Yep. And I was feeling very good about Robert. I had Robert Tonyan probably too high in my ranks for the tight end ranks for the IDP guys, and he came through because I thought he would get a touchdown. He came through and got himself a touchdown. So only 2 catches, only 22 yards because I was hoping his route participation would grow. It didn't.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
He got himself a touchdown. The Patriots have allowed.
Finally.
The Patriots have allowed a touchdown a week through the tight end, pretty much, with the exception of maybe. But it's so that we were chasing that, and that came really.
Good call.
Well, we got more good calls, Steve. I actually like these quite a lot. Will Dissly. Listen, they traded for Noah Fant. They traded Russell Wilson for Noah Fant, and they have fully utilized Will. He's a good player, and he's overcome a lot in his career. So I'm truly rooting for him. But listen, he's getting it done. Like week in, week out, Will Dissly has been fantasy relevant, and it feels terrible to fully recommend because he's doing it on 4 catches, 3 catches, 2 catches, 3 catches. He's never exceeded 4 catches in a game. He's just scored 3 touchdowns in that span, and I mean it's come against not great opponents. You know, the Broncos, the Falcons, the Lions are the games where he scored, and he didn't score against the 49ers, albeit a very good defense against the tight end.
Right.
It's how much longer can we expect Will Dissly to score touchdowns with the Seahawks? Because as long as it keeps happening, he's going to be fantasy relevant. And I'm not chasing him this week against the Saints. I know the Saints got lit up by the tight end this past week. I don't expect that to happen again. Or not lit up, but Irv Smith had a better day than I thought he would. What are you doing?
He's a touchdown or bust guy. If you're punting that position and streaming, then you're going to have to live with the non-touchdown weeks, and then he's going to probably help you win the touchdown weeks. So, if you're willing to ride through those ups and downs, then sure, he's probably a great cheap option. Absolutely.
It's just a true zero floor, not amazing ceiling, getting it done because of the touchdown.
Well, for tight end, it's a decent ceiling. Consider how bad tight ends are.
I guess you can keep riding him. I'm not playing against the Saints this week. I don't think he's going to get a score against the Saints, but I do think I think you could do worse than him out there. I think he's this year's Hunter Henry, I guess.
Yeah.
Not a great offense, but he's getting
great comparison.
Yeah. I'm much more excited about this second name. Do you want to take it or do you want me to?
Yeah, sure. Logan Thomas in Washington there with no Jahan Dotson this week. That's going to obviously clear up some target volume. He's still, Carson likes his tight ends to begin with. So there's just going to be more opportunity. It sounds like the Titans are giving up the most passing touchdowns. So like you alluded to with the Carson Wentz analysis there. So kind of goes hand in hand here with Logan Thomas. He also played the most snaps of the season last week. So, riding into this week with them down one of their top pass catchers, he could certainly be an excellent streaming option and a guy even going forward the rest of the season. As long it sounds like he's healthy. That was always been his issue. So if he can stay healthy the rest of the year, he could be a guy that really pays nice dividends if he's somehow still available and you grab him this week.
Yeah, I like it a lot because that season line snaps is still at 74%. That can grow.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wouldn't be surprised if that got more. Like he's not getting 100% because he's not going to be mauling people like George Kittle. Like honestly, George Kittle disappointed me last night as a fantasy asset. It was fun to watch the block, man. He was throwing people. Logan Thomas can still see more work, and I think he's in for a good week against the Titans. All right, let's get to our offensive questions. I totally forgot to toss this banner here at the bottom, but still toss any comments into the show. But yeah, let's start with Marco again. Should I drop Stafford for Mariota? I'm assuming Daniel Jones, Teddy, Brissett, Matt Ryan, Bailey Zapp, Jimmy Fields, pretty much the wire. Would you drop him for any of them? Obviously, not exactly done what we wanted him to do, and more so that's he will not look at Allen Robinson. I don't know what Allen did, and maybe I'm giving Allen Robinson not enough stick, but like he doesn't care. He does not look at him, and that's why it's not working because he doesn't have another weapon outside of Cup right now.
And they draw another tough matchup in the Cowboys. So basically, you should be looking at it, that whole group as streaming and being matchup based. So, yeah, I would pivot off of him.
That would be my pick here.
Who is it?
I think I'd play Brissett against the Chargers.
Okay.
That doesn't feel right to say. I don't really like any of the other names, and that's pretty much why I'm saying it.
The only one I was looking at, he has got Mariota on there. I know he stunk it up last week, but they got the Bucks, so which I know is normally, I know Mahomes tore them up, and Mariota's not Mahomes, but if anything, they're gonna be playing from behind, so he could have some nice garbage time. So I would pick one between Mariota and Brissett. If it's a league, that depending how much it means to you, Pickett might be the more fun play, or the most fun play out of all of those. If you're looking for entertainment and fun, it's Pickett. But I would, pick between Brissett or Mariota.
I think Brissett's my pick, but I want to bring up for a quick second Zach Wilson, who played against the Jets. Or against the Steelers. Only completed 50 passes because he's not that good of a quarterback in my eyes still. And he caught a touchdown. That's not going to repeat, but he got it done for fantasy, and he plays Miami.
Yeah,
we play him over someone like Brissett or.
He's a dark horse, right?
It's a good match.
It's so tough to trust any of these guys.
I think Wilson for ceiling, Brissett for floor is my answer for this question.
Okay, I like that.
I think I'd lean Brissett more often than not because as good as the Zach Wilson matchup is, I'm not sold on him at all. That said, Teddy Bridgewater on the field, I have no expectations for Teddy Bridgewater, so that could lead to even better field position for Zach Wilson. But I think it's going to be a better day for Breeze, a much more balanced offense in New York. I'd go Brissett here.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely like highlighting Zach Wilson, but I'll roll with you on that one. Try Brissett out.
We have another long one in here from Nick Poppich. All right, it's a 10-man PPR. He's 4-0. He's asking if this is a chip-winning team. The
Oh.
team consists of Lamar, CMC, Leonard Fournette, CeeDee Lamb, Godwin, Drake London, Travis Kelce, Jerry Jeudy, Jamal Williams, Jeff Wilson, David Njoku, Romeo Doubs with Jameson Williams on the IR.
Yeah, you've got some amazing ceiling guys there. Absolutely.
I think it is, yeah. I mean, I think you could maybe if Godwin gets
Right.
what he is, then
He stuck it out to me.
Yeah, that is the only question mark. And it's a 10-man league. I think you could find even other options on the wire that will there are going to be options that surface throughout the year that wouldn't surface in a 12 team that will in a 10. And I think you can answer wide receiver that way. And you look set at everything else. The Lamar Jackson, Travis Kelce duo is going to be a huge positional advantage. Yeah, he also has a question about a trade, it looks like, so I'll pull this up right now. It's been going on in the comments. I'm going to scroll to the most recent one. Looks like Drake London, Jamal Williams, and Jeff Wilson for Jamar Chase and Deontay Johnson.
Hell yeah.
I am 100% taking the Jamar Chase and Deontay Johnson side.
Yeah.
The dip that I didn't really know there truly was on Jamar Chase. Yeah. I mean, I think there's going to be a little bit of volatility with Deontay Johnson now with Pickett.
Yeah.
Pickett's an upgrade, and Deontay Johnson's a damn good player. So
yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat.
I'd probably do it. Would you do this without Jamar Chase or without Deontay in it? Because I might.
Yeah, man, 3 for 1's tough, but yeah, it's all you're trading bench guys for a guy that is immediately entering your starting lineup. So sure.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're on the same page here. Smash that trade. So we also have another question here on a trade of should he trade Jalen Waddle and Dalvin Cook? I assume Dalvin Cook. Mm-hmm. James Cook, that'd be cool. Jalen Waddle and Dalvin. God, Siri. Jalen Waddle and Dalvin Cook for Najee and Mark Andrews. The other receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Godwin, and Garrett Wilson.
Why is anybody trying to acquire Najee Harris right now? No thanks. The Andrews doesn't do enough for me on that one personally.
I think it does for me. I think Mark Mark Andrews is great. He's won you weeks already this year. Jalen Waddle is great. I think Najee.
It'd be nice.
I think Najee's going to have a much better season.
Maybe with Pickett.
That's what I'm saying. I expect if there is a downfield passing attack,
right,
that is something that Najee hasn't had his entire career so far in these 2 years. I have to believe that Najee Harris is still a good player. If Najee Harris is a good player, he's going to have a much better opportunity. Dalvin Cook is equally underwhelming right now. And I would take Mark Andrews over Jalen Waddle. And I really like that wide receiver group. I think it's – I get the apprehension on Najee, who also didn't catch a pass this week, which was also scary. But I think I would –
I'd like to know how bad their tight end position for him is potentially, but
I just saw the Darren Waller, who has been brutally bad.
Right, he had one.
You can't cut Darren Waller. He's a forceful. So, wow,
it looks like he got the depth. If it looks like he wants to be talked into this. So, and he's got the depth. So, I could see it. I don't love the value of the downgrade, and Cook, it just feels like it's coming. It's got to be coming for Cook. I know he's been, trust me, he's been killing me in a few leagues too. So, and then you know what, Waddle with no Tua for God knows how long. All right, you've converted me. Go for it.
I don't think you're going wrong either way. I love Mark Andrews enough to do that.
Makes sense.
I don't know if Darren Waller's rebound is coming. I was really worried about him in the offseason, and it's kind of all coming together now. It's almost like skipping the entire preseason doesn't help you. One more question. Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders and the Eagles duo for you. I assume this is for I assume Miles Sanders. For Pittman, Olave, and Jamal Williams. A lot of Jamal Williams questions coming off the bigger Swift's injury status and question. If this is I assume this is not a super flex.
Right.
So I'm smashing the Pittman, Olave, Jamal Williams.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
As much as Jalen Hurts gives you that advantage. Michael
That's
Pittman
nice.
is great. Chris Olave is ascending. Jamal Williams is a plug and play just as much as Miles Sanders is.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Same page.
Grant, on what our thoughts were on Boone for the rest of the season. We answered this kind of, Grant. But Grant's a good friend of ours. If anybody's wondering, we're not checking. I think it's going to mix in. I just don't think it's going to be anything stable.
Right.
I think he's the best big play asset they have at running back right now. Like I said, I liked him in Minnesota. He was working off those big plays in the preseason, just couldn't get on the field beyond Dalvin, Madison. Same thing in Denver. But I think he's got a chance, and I want to pick up some Denver back and take that lottery ticket. I have a question from somebody who texted me, a friend of mine, who said would answer on the show.
Nice.
Of Russ, Goff, and T-Law, which one would you shop? He's trying to get Devin Singletary.
Ugh, I don't love getting but if you have all three of them, I mean, Russ would be my obvious one that I would want to try to dump. I mean, I think Goff is going to keep slinging it the rest of the year, and Lawrence is ascending. I know he had a bad week against the Eagles, but that's to be expected. So, yeah, Russ for me of those three.
Yep, I completely agree, and that's. I do think we're going to see more passing than ever with Russ now that Javonte's gone.
Yeah. I
don't want to see more passing than ever.
Right?
Javonte's gone, to be honest, but I think that's what we're going to get, and
sucks.
Yeah, that I think that answers it. I think I would definitely shop Russ because Russ not played well, and I'm not going to give him the best. I think the type of thing I want to buy Russ when Nathaniel Hackett gets fired.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go. That's a solid piece of advice.
Nathaniel Hackett is unbelievably.
It's brutal.
But yeah, that is our show. I appreciate everyone for tuning in, for all the questions as well. We got one quick final one in there. I'll give one out there. Is Hines relevant if Jonathan Taylor is out on Thursday? Yes.
Yeah, of course.
He's relevant regardless, honestly. That I like Nyheim Hines, and I think he's in decent flex more weeks than not. Probably not everyone upside, but that flex type of play for sure, especially in Denver. Might not have as good of a pass rush now with but yeah, I do think you play Nyheim Hines. That is our show. That is our Week 5 waiver show. Hopefully, you guys get all the players that you want to have. Good luck in your matchup this week. Hope everyone stays safe. I appreciate you joining me this week, Steve, especially a little bit more of a last-minute step.
No problem.
But yeah, that is our show. Enjoy your week of football. Enjoy your week of just anything. Hope everything goes on. Final question of trade Najee for Josh Jacobs. I would not. I would hold on to Najee. Have a good show. Have a good